Hey everyone, my name is Lance, and this is Amped About Aimpad. I am particularly amped about today's episode because I get to show you something that I haven't shown anyone yet, and this is our newest revision of our keyboard. It's so special that I've decided to put it in a gun case. That's how awesome it is. So I'm going to go ahead and reveal our newest keyboard. We like to call it the Aimpad R5 keyboard. From the visual aspect, it looks like any other keyboard, but it's far more special than that. And I'm excited to show you what it can do. So I'm going to plug it into my computer and show you what it can do. So this is the Aimpad R5 keyboard. The first thing you're going to notice right off the bat is that the LEDs are across all of the keys. In previous revisions we just focused on these other areas to give some type of effect, but now all the keys are lit with RGB keys made possible by the Cherry MX RGB switch. The other thing you'll notice is the keycaps are different than we've used in the past. They're very clean and precise lighting. That's not been possible with other ones that we've tried out. This is made possible by a double injection molded keycap. So there's actually two pieces of plastic that are molded together. It makes a very nice solid piece of material, and the legend on the top of it's never going to wear off because it's a physical piece of plastic that's molded together, and so it'll never wear down. Outside of that, from other differences that we've made is rather than just having a total of 8 analog keys, we now have, I'm sorry, not 10 analog keys, we now have 12. We added this R and this F key to be analog as well, and I'll demonstrate why we've done that. So for those that aren't familiar with the Aimpad analog keyboard, there's two basic operations that we have. The first is just this normal keyboard mode. It's just basic. It's any other keyboard is the same thing, but if you push this key to activate the analog functions of the keyboard, it can sense how far down you're pushing the key and translate that into different actions or different functions depending on what you want to do. So once you're in Aimpad mode, there's actually a total of 5 profiles that we set up that function for different purposes. The first one is when you do F1, all the LEDs will be blue to visually give you feedback that you're in this blue mode. The blue mode is designed specifically for first-person shooters, and so you have WASD is designated as the left analog stick of an Xbox controller. So based off of how far down you push the key is how fast you move in that direction. And if you combine the two keys, for example W and D, you can aim the direction or the specific 360-degree movement that you want to go in that direction. So you have full control over speed and direction by combining two keys at the same time. Now some gamers don't like to use WSD, they use ESDF, so that's why we've added these other keys, allowing you to shift it over. So by pressing FN and F6 at the same time, that will shift the mode so that ESDF is now the primary mode of the left analog stick rather than WASD, but if you want to switch it back, you just hit it again, and it allows you to switch between those two layouts. So that's a nice feature. The other important aspect of this is that in order to control the sensitivity, some games have a type of dead zone that's added that makes it difficult, so that if you push the key, it doesn't respond at the very top of the key press. And this is really an important aspect of being able to smoothly control and have a direct experience of, if I want to apply a small amount of pressure to the key, I want a small amount of movement to happen. In some games, the dead zone is so big that you actually have to push the key in a significant amount before it responds, and that leads to a disconnect of what I'm doing with my fingers and what's happening in the game. So in order to increase that sensitivity, you can press the FN key in the page up, and the LEDs will light a greenish color, letting you know that you've increased the sensitivity, and then page down will decrease the sensitivity if the dead zone is such that you push the key and you immediately start running faster than you think you should. You can ease that off. And it's important that this is done in hardware, because if you're in the middle of the game and you're noticing, it's hard for you to like gauge where that sweet point of being able to set it exactly where you want. Otherwise, if you had to use some type of software to configure it, you'd have to, okay, I'm going to set it at 25%, and then you go in the game, it's like, it's not quite sensitive enough, so you have to exit out of the game, go back in the software, change the software, oh, now I'm going to put it to 30, and keep on going back and forth. Whereas this way you can be in the game, you just go, does it work? Nope. Yep, that's where I want it. So it's a nice, easy way to configure it. And we've designed the Aimpad R5 keyboard to not have to rely on any software whatsoever to configure everything that you want to do. So that's pretty significant and pretty awesome. Something else that is a pet peeve of mine is the Windows key. So a lot of gaming keyboards, they'll advertise this as a feature for gaming keyboards that you can disable the Windows key and so that it won't drop you out of the game. And sure, that's nice, but why completely disable a key that's clustered around where your fingers are going to be located? Why not assign it to something else in the game so you can hit it with your thumb button or your pinky button or something like that rather than completely disable it? Because disabling a key that is in a fully functional, fully usable spot seems like a really stupid idea. So what we've done is made it so that when you're in these gaming modes, the Windows key is actually going to be the P key of the keyboard as well. So you can assign it to be any function that the P key can be, and it gives you an extra key that's in that clustered area for you to use. So that's the basic overlay there. You might be thinking, now what happens if you have these analog keys under WASD? How can I type to my friends or trash talk in games and things like that? Well, so we've configured it so that at the very bottom of the key press, if you push the W key, you get to the very bottom and then it will activate the keyboard W key, allowing you to still have the full range of motion but not interfere with the game for the most part. There are a few games that it gets a little confusing when you're having analog control with the W key and then you hit the keyboard W key as well. So we made it possible for you to enable or disable that feature if you want, and that's done by pressing the FN key and the home key. The keys will flash letting you know you've enabled it or disabled it by pressing it again. So giving you full control over how you want that to respond. So that's the full overview of the F1 mode. So next is the F2 mode. This is very similar, but it's primarily designed for driving. The biggest difference, and the only difference really, is that the W and the S key, rather than being the left analog stick forward and back, it's the right trigger and the left trigger of an Xbox controller, allowing you to control vehicles that typically rely upon you having the right and left trigger as your acceleration and brake. Next is the F3 mode. The keys are lit in this yellowish color. And the primary difference with this is that all the keys that are analog are now active. So that gives you 8 here and 4 here that are fully active and assignable. The way that we've designed it is that the WASD is the left analog stick, the Q and the E is the left and right trigger, the R and the F is the up and down of the right analog stick, and then the left or the remaining buttons is also the left analog stick. Since there's only a total of 10 addressable analog settings on an Xbox controller, that limits the amount of analog functions that you have. But the primary purpose of this is designed for vehicles that are flying or in space, like a helicopter or a spaceship or something like that. So we have it possible that you could have WASD would allow you to move forward and back and kind of strafe left and right. The Q and the E would allow you to twist and roll. The R and F would allow you to use your elevation up and down. And then the pitch and the yaw would be controlled by the trusty mouse that you have over here that allows you to have a full control over 6 degrees of freedom of movement. And I'll demonstrate that effectively a little bit later. The next one is the F4 mode. This is a mouse mode. The primary purpose of it is to allow you to control the mouse cursor. And that's done through the ESDF keys to allow you to move up, down, left, and right. And then the Q and the A is an analog scroll wheel, so if you want to scroll through web pages or Excel documents at a controlled speed based on how far you push it down, those keys will let you do that. We've made the space bar the left mouse button, the shift key the right mouse button, and the alt key a middle click if you want. But that's basically what its purpose is for. Now we've assigned it in such a way that you can hit the Aimpad key to switch back to keyboard mode. So if you were typing in a Word document or something like that, you could be typing along, and then you could hit the Aimpad key and keep your fingers in the home typing row without having to pick up your hand, grab the mouse, move it around, click where you want, and then come back and readjust yourself and begin typing again. You can just move the mouse cursor where you want like this, and then hit the key and then begin typing what you want. Hit the key again, now it's back to a mouse, and readjust and go back to typing again. So it's a very direct mode of operation, and is pretty awesome, and I'll show a demonstration of how to use the mouse in just a minute as well. The last function is this F5 mode, and you'll see that the keys are all lit in red except for these analog ones, which are lit in white, and that's because they're white hot. They're hair trigger active. The ability for you to use these keys as analog allows you to decide where exactly in the key press you want them to activate. So this is possible because we've disabled the normal Cherry MX switch activation point and set it so that right now it's at the very top of the key press. And if you want to adjust it, you can by doing the FN key and then use the minus key, which will subtract where that activation point or decrease it down, and you'll see it will flash this reddish color. And then if you want to increase it to make it green by pushing the plus sign, that allows you to set the activation point. So if I go like all the way to the very top, these keys will respond right at the very top of the key press, just barely touching it. It's a very impressive way to do it. I like to call this the MOBA mode, because if you're playing a MOBA game like League of Legends or something like that, your QWE keys are ready for you to activate right at the top of the key press, and you could have that split-second advantage over someone else that might be activating at a lower point in the activation. Yeah, we're splitting hairs in milliseconds, but it doesn't matter because it's still pretty cool. And I'll show a demonstration of that in just a bit. But that is the overview of what the Aimpad R5 keyboard is capable of. So now I'm going to dive into each of those last three functions and give you some more detail. Alright, so delving a little bit deeper into some of these features and demonstrating what those profiles are functioning, I'm going to start with the MOBA keys and then work my way backwards on some of those newer features. And we'll go from there. So this first one is the MOBA key, or the hair activation key point, where the key is activated at the very top. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to demonstrate this, but I'll try my best using Microsoft Word. So you'll see here, this is just the normal Cherry MX switch activation point. So if I push this key down a little bit, it's not activated. A little bit more, no, a little bit more, no, a little bit more, no, a little bit more, then it activates. So it's somewhere, about 1.5 millimeters or 2 millimeters, somewhere in between there, of when that activates normally. So if I switch it into the hair trigger mode, now if I just push the key in just a barely amount, it will activate instantly. It's barely touching it. Right at the very top of the key press. So if I wanted to adjust that a little bit, I could say, okay, function, and then minus. Now it's, let's see, it's down a little bit more, right? So I push it a little bit more. Let's say I take it down all the way, so I'll go, I don't know, it's probably all the way down the bottom. I'll push it in, 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 and now it's activated. It wasn't quite at the bottom. I could probably still keep going down a little bit more, but you get the idea. I can activate where exactly those keys are being activated anywhere in that whole range of the analog switch. I like it at the very top because I can have that hair trigger motion where if I'm playing League of Legends or something like that, I can cast my ult really fast, maybe slightly faster than someone else. Yeah, we're probably splitting hairs and splitting milliseconds, but I don't care. It's still pretty cool. That is the MOBA feature, hair trigger feature, and let's go to the next one. Alright, so I've set up this little demo to highlight what can be done in the white mouse key mode. So this is just MS Paint, and I set up these little cones to kind of navigate around. And what I'm doing is I push down the space bar, which is going to be the left mouse button, and that's basically allowing me to draw in MS Paint by holding it down. And then if I use the mouse cursor, or the keys here on the keyboard for the ESDF keys, I can carefully navigate myself around these cones. pretty good. If I compare that to the mouse, just a normal mouse movement, you'll not see it on the camera, but I'll just be moving this with my mouse around these cones pretty effectively, just to kind of compare the difference. Is there a huge difference? Yeah, I mean, these are a little bit more angled, I would think. These are a little more rounded, but otherwise it's pretty darn good, allowing me to navigate. There's some pretty interesting things I can show you. If I hold down these two keys at the same amount, I am constantly drawing that line in that same direction. I kind of wiggled a little bit there. But if I try to duplicate that with the mouse at a precise angle, it's pretty difficult to do that. I did a decent job, I guess. But you'll notice just the subtle ways that a mouse tracks. There's a bunch of noise and things like that versus the direct line that's made. So you can kind of get a sense that I'm able to set a specific trajectory of where that mouse is headed, and move it effectively as fast as I want to or as slow as I want to accurately duplicate the experience of using a mouse. It's very similar to the experience of using an IBM Lenovo keyboard on like a laptop that has little red nubs to move the mouse cursor around. The experience is very similar to that, but you don't have to have a red mouse nub on your keyboard. You can have a nice clean look that is not distracting or ugly, in my opinion. But that, I think, effectively demonstrates what can be done in mouse mode on the Aimpad R5 keyboard. Alright, so here we have a game called Overload. It is in a prototype state right now. This is from the developers that developed Descent. It's a classic 6 Degrees of Freedom movement game from many years ago. I remember it by playing with a full-on joystick and a throttle, and it was an excellent game. And I'm happy to say that this game has carried on that wonderful tradition of full degrees of movement. Now, you'll notice in this game, when I push the W key in just a small amount, I'm moving a small amount, and if I push it a little bit more, it'll go faster and faster and faster all the way. Same thing with left and right. I can move small, subtle movements this way, and I can roll left and right. And then R and F is set for my vertical movement, which is also an analog. So the one thing you're not seeing is with my mouse, I'm moving left and right and up and down, just normal movement that you would expect with a mouse. But by combining both of those all at the same time, I have complete control of this ship, that I can move myself in any speed and any direction that I want to. And it is a very smooth experience. Woo. So I wanted to contrast this real quick with keyboard mode. If I switch it back to normal keyboard mode, you'll see I'm pushing the key just a small amount and I'm flying left and right really fast. And up for forward and backwards, same thing. And then if I spin, it's spinning at full speed, and I have no easy way to move myself around. So it's a pretty stark contrast when I switch it back to being able to smoothly move exactly how fast I want and at what angle I want. Let's see, oh, here we go. So that's a demonstration of flight mode with the Aimpad R5 keyboard. Alright, so hopefully you enjoyed that video. I was in the middle of recording this video and our firmware developer sent me some new code to test out, and it was just too awesome not to share it, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Basically what he's done is he made it possible for us to control the brightness of each of the LEDs based off of how much you push the key. So it's mapped to the ASD key right now, and this is just for demonstration purposes. This is just a quick demo, but basically if I push down the A key, you can see that the brightness of the red LEDs increases, the D key, the green, and the blue on the S. And I can combine all three of them to make them all white if I want, and ease off one or ease off the other to blend the brightness of each of those LEDs to get any color that I want. And once I found that perfect color that I want, say I want this purplish color, I hit the space bar and it freezes the colors at that exact color you want. So complete control over the color of the LEDs completely in hardware. It's pretty freaking awesome. I had to share. But hopefully you enjoyed the Aimpad R5 keyboard, and we've got lots that we're wanting to do. If you like these videos and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you want this in your hands, please share it with other people so that they know about it. The more people that know about it, the better chance we have of bringing this to the market. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for believing in Aimpad.